You guys, I have such an incredible interview for you today. This is a really special one. This is not something that comes along every day or every week. I am so excited to help share the incredible story of someone who was very unwell with ME/CFS for 33 years. At times severely unwell, bedbound, just really struggling, and is now here today to share her full recovery story from ME/CFS. I'm here with Irene Bryan over in Surrey in England, and the story is so special to me personally because my mother was sick with ME/CFS for almost 30 years, and I have a really good sense of what that looks like and how easy it can be to give up. So I'm excited to see that once again, we have so many examples that it's never too late, no matter how severe, no matter how sick, no matter how long, there is still hope and there are still ways out of this. So please join me in welcoming the amazing Irene. Irene, it's so great to have you here today. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, good to help anybody.
Yeah, it's so amazing that you are doing this today, sharing your story. And I know that you've persevered through, for people watching, a solid half hour of technical problems that were my fault. This woman has so much patience. Clearly, if you lived with CFS for so many years and didn't give up. So you've had quite the journey with this. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it sort of came out of the blue, obviously, as it does for most people. I had a very active life, sort of running around all over the place, doing, looking after 3 little children. I did all sorts of extra activities, I ran a youth group, I ran a Sunday school, I did volunteer work at the school, fundraising, was in a Bible study. So burnt the candle at both ends. I think I used to sleep from about 2-3 o'clock in the morning and I'd be awake at 5 and just on the go. But I had lots of energy, so it didn't matter. And one day I just was driving home from school, having done a fundraising thing. And halfway up the hill, I thought, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't go any further. And I stopped at my friend's house and I said to her, I just don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't do anything. So she took me home and I was there for the next 18 months. I was in bed. I felt fine when I lay down. And then I felt like I had energy and I think I'll go and bake a cake. But the minute I stood up, I just couldn't do anything. I just drained of energy completely. So I was there for 18 months and I was very lucky with the 3 children. I had quite a support group. I had a lovely support group who fetched and carried and did everything for me. I had a lady that used to do the cooking. So the children were well looked after and they used to come home in the afternoons and sit in the bed with me and would do homework, things like that. And then after the 18 months, back in those days, they just said, well, you've got yuppie flu, as it was called, and all you need to do is exercise and eat well. And that's fine, but exercise was completely out of the question. But after 18 months of being in bed, I did sort of recover slowly, but never completely. So I was able to live a fairly good life, but always tired, constantly tired. So, that went on for many years. And then I came over to the UK because I was in Africa at that time. And I came over to the UK with my daughter. For the first couple of years, it was fine. But then I started overdoing things again. I was walking like 10 miles every day just to try and get exercise. I picked up a couple of viruses because I was working in a care home. And I picked up 2 viruses and I was on leave for a month. At the end of the month, I woke up at 5 in the morning to get ready to go to work. And I just can't get out of bed. I can't do this again. I'm back to where I was in the beginning. So I actually had to retire at that stage. And then being retired, then I thought, no, I've got to keep up the exercise. So I kept pushing myself. And then I moved and that was quite traumatic. And then I started again going on the sort of exercise thing. I had to walk. There's a place called Box Hill, which is near us, which is where they did the Olympics cycling. So I took to walking up that. If I couldn't do a long walk, I would walk up the steps to the top. It's about maybe, I think it's 200 meters or so to the top ascent. But yeah, even when I was tired, I wouldn't let myself not go. I'd wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock and make sure my walking clothes were in the bathroom. So as soon as I got up to go to the bathroom, I put my clothes on, grabbed my bag, and I was gone before I'd had anything to drink or eat or anything. I just went walking. And I'd be back by 7, 8, 9 o'clock sometimes, have a shower. And then, of course, it got to the stage where then I couldn't really do anything for myself. So once I got back, I just had to lie down because I didn't have the energy to cook or anything else. So it was okay if I'd prepared my breakfast, but if I hadn't, then it was a problem. But then I would eat anything that I could just put hand to, So I put on a lot of weight, which of course then exacerbates it because you get on like a treadmill. And then one day when I walked, I was going up Box Hill. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got to a certain place and I thought, if I don't sit down, I'm going to fall down. So I sat down on a tree trunk that was there. And normally there were people walking up and down, doing training for marathons, I suppose. They were running up and down. There was nobody there that morning. And I sort of sat there for a bit and I thought, well, I can't stay here because I'm sort of halfway up the hill. Well, about 3/4 of the way up the hill. And if I don't go up, I can't go down and I've got to go up. So I stood up and fell over. I just collapsed. But I got myself up eventually and went up to the top, went down the hill, and that was it. Went to the doctors and I said, I just don't know what's wrong with me. I mean, I knew I had ME, but I had shelved it. I just wasn't going to have it, And they just sort of said, well, no, there's nothing much we can do for you. And they sent me on a course with the NHS to try and get help. And they did all the tests, the usual tests and things that they did. But they basically said, look, there's not much we can do. You've got to kind of learn to live with it. You've got to just pace yourself, do what you can. But I've never been one to actually accept that that's going to be the rest of my life, because at that stage, I wasn't able to do anything. I mean, showering was something that I did if I'd saved up 2 weeks worth of energy to go and have a shower. And if I had to shower and wash my hair, then it was going to be another 2 weeks afterwards that I was not be able to do anything. So, yeah, it was very difficult at that stage. Yeah. And just before lockdown, so that was 2021, I suppose. Yeah, I think we went into lockdown 2021. A friend of mine had come over from South Africa to help me just to see if there was anything they could manage to do. And of course, ended up being in lockdown with me. So which was was a blessing for me, because then I had somebody do the cooking and the washing and everything else. So they kind of took over and looked after me. But I did get to the stage where I sort of thought, well, okay, I'm feeling better, so I think I can do this. But the moment I had to start doing my own cooking, washing, and everything else, I was back to square one, and I, couldn't really do much. Luckily, I had all my groceries brought in, because with lockdown we could do that. We could have it delivered. And I used to watch a lot of your interviews that you used to give, what you still do, the interviews that you give. And this friend of mine was watching with, and I got, I don't know whether I'm just lazy or whether it's just that I just didn't have the energy to actually do all the things that one's supposed to do to try and get better. I'd read a few books that I get halfway through, and then I just can't do that. I'd try a different way of eating, and then it would just be too much. It's just, everything was just too much. And then I heard you, Jason, on that I Can Thrive. And you were talking about brain retraining, rewiring your brain. And my first reaction was, oh no, Raelan, no. No. Don't you start telling me it's all in my brain. It's all in my mind. And I was not impressed. I thought, no, now I've got to find somebody else to watch, because Raelan's gone to the other side, She's to say it's all in your mind. Yeah. Anyway, then I saw another one of yours, again with Jason, and I thought, okay, so what you're saying is it's not actually in your mind. Well, I think it was more Jason was saying, It's not in your mind. It is that your mind, if you retrain your brain to think, let me try and say that again, that because your brain is stuck in that fight or flight mode, and that's just because of having overdone things all the time, your body is trying to protect you. So your mind then would just shut down the moment you did something because it was scared you were going to overdo it, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, when I heard him explaining all that in fact, your body has switched down some of the genes that you have, and now you're stuck in this fight or flight. I thought, it just started making sense to me because I'm quite a laid back sort of person, always have been, but I suddenly found myself stressing about silly things. If the doorbell rang, for instance, I would shoot through the roof, just like I was a gibbering wreck. That's stupid. Even if I was expecting the doorbell to ring, it was just, I was finding my shoulders creeping up. I'm thinking, what are you doing? And I had to physically relax. So that was it. Yeah. Then I contacted Jason and went on to his program because it actually really made sense. And after chatting to him, I thought, no, I think it's something I could do. For quite a while, I've been looking for something, that I can do that I know I'll follow through with. And so it sort of clicked for me. And then having worked with him, I found it really, really helpful because I've never ever thought I'm not going to get better. I've always thought I know I can get on top of it. Maybe not be healed from it. That was something I had a problem with as well, was when people talked about being healed from it. And I thought, no, I don't think you can be healed from it. I think you can go into, what do you call it?
Like remission?
Yes, remission. That's it. But I don't think you ever get healed from it. But I think my mindset's now changed. That I think you can actually be healed from it, yeah. And in the process, I've learned to listen to myself, listen to my body. And I think that's, so yes, there's been a lifestyle change in a way. It's been a journey of getting to know myself, work out what my triggers are. And I think that's been the biggest part for me is learning what I need to do to keep myself healthy instead of going back, if that makes sense to you.
It does, yeah. Something I hear a lot of people say in interviews about their journey. It definitely seems to be a reoccurring theme with people. I find it so interesting and amazing that you made it through all those years, those hard years, and still never gave up that belief that you were going to recover. I'm sure you had days where you weren't like, yes, I will. You probably had your down days, but overall you held on to that. And it would be very easy to get jaded and give up all hope after all of that time. So do you have any idea what it was, do you think, that kept you in that mindset?
I'm just a very positive person. I think I'm also obstinate. I'm going to give up. You're not going to tell me how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. So I think part is just my personality is like that. I never ever felt, in fact, I was almost like in denial. So like, I'd go to the doctor and say, well, I'm really struggling. She'd say, but you do know you have ME, don't you? I said, yes, well, I do, but yeah, well, okay, fine. But I think it was a lot of that is just not really accepting it. I knew I had it and I knew that it came with all that fatigue, but part of it was probably just ignorance. I think it could be part of it.
When you finally got onto this path where you were making progress, you found what was kind of making sense for you, how long did it take you from that point to get to a place where you're like, yeah, I think I'm pretty much fully here back?
Well, it didn't take long. It didn't take long at all. I think like I was getting to the stage of my illness where I thought, I'm not going to give into it, but I am going to have to make life changes. I can't carry on dreaming about the fact that one day I will be going up Box Hill again and going out for walks in the forests and things like that. My life is going to have to change from that point of view. So I think that's sort of the closest I got to saying, okay, this is never going to happen. But then working with Jason, it was quite soon. As soon as he goes through like relaxation, and then which is the other one. Well, there's quite a few things that he goes through, but then being positive, I'm trying to think what he would call it now. But that for me, as I said to him, was the easiest one, because he said to me, "Oh, like we go through certain steps. What would you like to go through today?" And I think he thought that would be the hardest. Maybe for some people, that is the hardest, is just accepting that I am going to get better. So I had no problem in believing that at all. So the problem I have is the one for relaxation. I'm not good at relaxing. I'm really, really not good at relaxing. So I've always found that a struggle. People say, do meditation and this and that. Meditation is something I just, no. I've always struggled with it. So that sort of came into line, though, once I went through all that. So yeah, I can do this. I am confident that this is going to work. This is a good thing. And then the relaxation took a bit more work. So I think once I got into it, probably about 2 weeks, I could feel the difference. It was quite quick, but it's been a while longer that it's taken me to get back to knowing that I'm fine now. I'm fine. I still have my days when I'm tired. Don't get me wrong, but then I know I've overdone it. So I now can stop myself before I actually get to the stage where I'm really pushing boundaries. I mean, the other day I walked from here. I walked about 6 kilometers to another little village, caught the bus from there to another town. And then when I was sitting waiting to come back on the bus, I thought, my bus is 15 minutes time, and this one is 10 minutes. I can go on this bus. So I jumped on this bus. It was going to take me to another place, which was about 2.5 hours away from where I needed to be. But it went through another village, and I thought, you know what, I'm tired. So I think I'm going to get off here, because I can get home in half an hour. Otherwise, if I carry on this path, it's going to be another at least 2 hours before I get home. So I was able to stop myself from that. No, I'm doing this because that's what I set out to do. So, I think it's things like that.
Yeah, I think it's really like the brain training continues even once you're in that recovery phase, because all of those old habits and personality traits are there. It's pretty ingrained. You think that just knowing that it's not good for you, I was naive. That's what I thought. I'm like, okay, I've seen the light. This isn't the way you're supposed to live. I'm going to do better. And then I thought I could just flick a switch and be a whole new person. That didn't happen, and it's still something that I'm working on. It's
That's it. I think you do. It's something that you're constantly having to be worked on, because I think a lot of people with chronic fatigue are people pleasers.
Yeah.
As well. I think that's quite a common theme. So there's things I've had to put in place where, like if my phone rings, I let it go to voicemail. If it's not, if it's one of my children, obviously I'm not going to do that, but.
You just say that because they might be watching.
They might.
Not you guys, just everybody else.
I just let it go to voicemail, because then I can deal with it when I want to. Because that's something I know I'm not good at. Is when something comes up and people ask me to do something, they don't expect you to do it now. They'll say, at some stage, could you do this? That doesn't work for me. If you've given me something to do, I want to do it. Get it done. So now I do let my phone go to voicemail, and I can just ignore it and eventually sort of pick it up later when I know I've got the time and I feel like doing something. So it's learning boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hardest for me was learning boundaries. So
boundaries with ourselves and with everybody else.
Exactly.
When to get off the bus and call it a day, and also when to put it to voicemail.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I also think recognizing that you need rest for the rest of your life, and your body will have limits even once you're well. So So many people I talk to have interviewed have talked about this concept of like real rest, like what so many of us think these days of as rest. And when I'm like, oh, I'm a bit tired, maybe I should sit down and watch TV for a bit or scroll Instagram, but that's not really rejuvenating. So now I make myself every day lay down and take a nap or do some meditation. And I actually smile and I say to myself in my head, I'm like, real rest. And I'm just trying to kind of retrain that habit of like, this is a good thing. Healthy people do this. Yeah.
I think that is important. I'm not good at resting. I really am not. As you say, I'll sit there for a bit and then I think, let me just see what's on my phone, Let me just see. Let me just check Facebook or,
Yeah.
No, you really don't need to.
Yeah.
Being aware of the things that encroach in your life, like the phones. In the evenings, I just leave mine all in the lounge when I go to bed, so that I'm not in the morning when I'm awake and I feel like getting up. Then I can look at my phone. So, yeah, it is. It's training yourself all the time, sort of realizing what put you where you were, and then going forward.
What does your family or your friends, people around you think of this? Like you were unwell and struggling in various degrees, sometimes really severely for a really long time. Do you tell them that you recovered through something called primarily brain retraining, or what do they think? What do those conversations look like?
Well, I mean, my family have been very supportive. Obviously, they've seen me at my worst, and they said to me, I even look better. They said they can't believe the difference and how much better I look. Obviously, I'm able to do things. I'm not sure if they really understand the brain retraining. They're all people in science, so they sort of like will question things more. But they can see the difference that it's made, and they understand the whole thing behind it. So they actually quite. People that don't really get it are the people who never got the CFS in the first place. The people who always like, no, you mustn't isolate yourself. No, you're doing this all wrong because you're becoming a recluse and you're just keeping yourself away from people. Because I would just stay in my flat, obviously, because I didn't have the energy to do anything else. So they never understood it then. They certainly don't understand it now. Maybe if you had done more, you would have got better quick because they didn't understand it in the first place.
Yeah, I think there's just a certain level of acceptance that has to happen for all of us, that just the majority of people, as much as we want them to, are just never going to get it. And it just is what it is.
That's it. I do have to, at the moment, try and control my, I wouldn't say temper, but I can flare up when people say silly things sometimes. No, wait. So why do I need to worry? Because I don't really care what people think, to be honest. I don't. But then sometimes I will just flare up when somebody says something that clearly shows you don't understand. And why are you even pretending to try and understand when you're not? Yeah. And that's something I struggle with at the moment. But
I think that's pretty normal. I suspect virtually all of us have our limits where we're like, okay, my patience is gone, my acceptance is gone. What's wrong with you?
But I'm not used to being, to flaring up for things.
Okay.
But I think it's because I know what I've been through. My family know what I've been through. So when somebody minimizes it a bit, you can think, no.
Yeah.
It is hard. It is hard for anybody who's going through that, who's gone through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it still gets me as well. I obviously get a lot of comments and stuff, and the majority of people are really positive and supportive, but every once in a while, you get people that are like, oh, if you recovered, then you were never sick. And it still gets me. I still have those trigger points. I'm like, how dare you? You don't know what I've been through. It was a nightmare. It was hell. But it is what it is. No, I don't think we're ever going to escape it.
No, you just have to let it go. It doesn't matter.
Irene, thank you so much. It is so incredible that you took the time. It's very generous of you to do this with your time and energy. And I know it's not an easy thing to do these sorts of things. I know lots of people out there are going to really appreciate it. So really genuinely, thank you so much for doing this today, Irene. This was incredible.
Well, as I say, thank you very much for letting me come and talk to you, because I hope it helps somebody,
Yeah, there's so many people out there that have been struggling for years or decades. It can start to feel pretty hopeless. So seeing that people are recovering at all different stages after all different amounts of time, different levels of severity, I think just putting that information out there helps people have the hope they need to have that fuel to keep going, because it's a tough journey. For people watching, of course, everything, if you want information about the program that Irene used, it will all be linked in the video description. For Jason McTiernan, his program is called I Can Thrive. And just thank you again for people watching. I'm sending massive hugs to you. Keep at it. You have totally got this. Don't give up until you find your answers. I hope Irene is an incredible example of that. So thank you for watching.